Have you ever wondered why some men seem trapped in a permanent state of struggle, while others remain unshakable in the face of chaos? It isn't about IQ, it is about wisdom. Stoicism teaches us that there are 7 specific phrases, verbal red flags that signal a weak mind and a fragile spirit. If you catch yourself saying even one of these, you are unknowingly sabotaging your own power. Today we expose these silent killers and replace them with unbreakable truth. If you are ready to leave the path of the fool and walk the path of the sage, subscribe now. Let the transformation begin. The first mark of the foolish man is the refusal to accept ownership. When the stupid man, and by stupid we mean philosophically unwise, faces a crisis, his first instinct is to look outward. He says, "It's not my fault. The economy is bad. My boss is unfair. My partner is difficult." He becomes the eternal victim. By blaming the world, he admits that the world has power over him. He voluntarily hands the keys to his happiness to strangers and circumstances. The Stoic, however, knows that blame is a waste of mental energy. Epictetus, the Stoic's great slave turned philosopher, taught us that there are things in our control and things out of our control. The foolish man tries to control the external and ignores the internal. The wise man ignores the external and masters the internal. Consider the story of the 2 captains navigating a storm. The foolish captain screams at the wind, cursing the waves for being too rough, shouting at the gods for their cruelty. He abandons the wheel to shake his fist at the sky. The wise captain looks at the same storm and says nothing. He knows the storm does not care about his opinion. Instead, he adjusts his sails. He grips the wheel tighter. He focuses only on what he can do: steer. When you say, "It's not my fault," you are the captain screaming at the wind. You are declaring your own helplessness. A Stoic understands that while the event might not be your fault, the response is always your responsibility. To blame is to remain a child. To accept responsibility, even for messes you didn't make, is the first step toward manhood. As long as you are busy pointing fingers, your hands are too busy to build a solution. Now let us go deeper. Think about what the blame habit actually does to a man over time. It is not a single moment of weakness. It is a lifestyle. The man who blames once will blame again. He builds an entire identity around victimhood. Over months and years, this identity calcifies. He wakes up every morning with a mental checklist of who is responsible for his misery. His parents didn't love him enough. His teachers didn't believe in him. Society rigged the game. The system is against him. And every time he repeats these stories, he drives the nails deeper into the coffin of his own potential. Here is something almost no one talks about. Blame feels good in the short term. When you find someone to blame, there is a rush of relief. You don't have to change. You don't have to grow. You don't have to face the uncomfortable mirror of self-examination. Blame is the ultimate escape hatch from personal responsibility, and like all addictions, it costs you far more than the momentary relief is worth. Epictetus knew this from lived experience. He was not born free. He was born a slave. He had chains around his ankles. He had a master who could beat him at will. By every external measure, nothing was in his control. And yet, Epictetus became one of the most revered philosophers in all of human history, not because his circumstances changed. His circumstances were brutal. He became great because he mastered his internal world while his external world remained a prison. He said, "Men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by the opinions about the things." Read that again. He was a slave saying this. If a man in chains refused to blame the world for his suffering and instead turned inward, what excuse do you have? There is another layer to this. The man who never accepts fault never learns. If it's always someone else's fault, there is no information for you to work with. You cannot course correct a ship if you insist the compass is wrong. Every mistake you own becomes a data point. Every failure you claim becomes a teacher. The men who rise highest in life are usually not the most talented. They are the most honest about their failures. They are the ones who, after being knocked down, ask, "What did I do that contributed to this? How can I do better?" They mine the rubble for gold. Ownership is not punishment. Ownership is power. The moment you say, "I played a role in this outcome," you reclaim the steering wheel. You are no longer a passenger in your own life. You become the driver, and only the driver can decide where the car goes next. Stop pointing, start building. This is perhaps the most dangerous lie a man can tell himself. "Her made me lose my temper." This phrase implies that your emotional state is a remote control device, and everyone around you holds a remote. The foolish man believes that insults, traffic, or rude people force him to react. He is a puppet jerked around by the strings of other people's behavior. If the world is kind, he is happy. If the world is harsh, he is miserable. He has no fortress of the mind. Seneca, the Roman statesman, famously said, "Anger is a temporary madness." He described anger not as a sign of strength, but as a sign of weakness, a collapse of reason. When you say someone made you angry, you are admitting that you lack the discipline to guard your own mind. Imagine a man walking through a crowded market. Someone bumps into him hard. He spins around furious, ready to fight, screaming about respect. Then he looks down and sees that the person who bumped him is blind and uses a cane. Instantly his anger vanishes, replaced by compassion. What changed? The physical event was the same. The bump was the same. The only thing that changed was his judgment of the event. This proves that the stranger didn't make him angry. His opinion of the stranger made him angry. The stupid man is a slave to his immediate impressions. The Stoic pauses. He realizes that an insult is like a rock thrown at a cliff. If the cliff is solid, the rock simply bounces off. If you are easily provoked, you are easily controlled. Do not give anyone that power over you. Let us explore this even further, because this is the one that destroys men's careers, marriages, and reputations the most. Anger, when it becomes a habitual response, is the single greatest destroyer of relationships and opportunity that exists. One outburst at work can undo 5 years of excellent performance. One explosion at home can create wounds that take decades to heal. And yet men walk around treating their rage as though it is a sign of passion, of strength, of not tolerating disrespect. The Romans had a word for this: passio, passion, and passion for them meant suffering. To be passionate in the ancient sense was to be acted upon, to be a receiver of external forces, not an agent of your own will. The man who loses his temper is not being strong. He is being acted upon. He is being moved. He is demonstrating to everyone around him that he can be triggered, wound up, and detonated like a simple device. Marcus Aurelius dealt with this at the highest level imaginable. He was the emperor of Rome. He commanded legions. He sat in the most powerful seat in the known world. And yet he wrote in his private journal about the daily battle to remain calm when people disappointed him, lied to him, betrayed him. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." He didn't write this to become bitter. He wrote it as a preparation, so that when these things happened, he would not be surprised. He would not be swept away. He had already anticipated the storm. That is the Stoic technique: premeditation, negative visualization. You think about what will go wrong before it goes wrong, not to become paranoid, but to become prepared. The man who expects everything to go smoothly is the man who falls apart the moment it doesn't. The man who has already considered every possible difficulty arrives at chaos with calmness. There is also a practical truth here that nobody tells young men. Anger is information. When something makes you angry, there is usually something underneath it worth understanding. Maybe it's a boundary being violated. Maybe it's an unmet expectation. Maybe it's an old wound being poked. The stupid man explodes and destroys the messenger. The wise man feels the heat, steps back, and asks, "What is this anger trying to tell me?" He uses the anger as data, not as fuel for destruction. Seneca wrote that he used to review his entire day before sleeping, asking where he had gone wrong that day. Where had he been impatient? Where had he spoken when he should have been silent? Where had he reacted when he should have responded? This nightly audit was not self-punishment. It was self-calibration. It is how a man gradually becomes a fortress, brick by brick, day by day. one swallowed reaction at a time. The next time someone pushes your buttons, remember your buttons only work if they are installed. You install them. The foolish man lives his entire life in the future. He says, "I'll be happy when I get that promotion. I'll be happy when I buy that house. I'll be happy when I retire." He treats the present moment as a waiting room, a mere obstacle to get through to reach some imaginary paradise. This is the definition of anxiety and dissatisfaction. By tying his happiness to future events that may never happen, he guarantees misery in the now. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, who had everything a man could want, wealth, power, fame, reminded himself daily to find contentment in the present duty. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." He understood that the future is a mist and the past is a memory. The present is the only reality we possess. There is a parable of a wealthy businessman who sees a fisherman resting by his boat at noon laughing with his family. The businessman asks, "Why aren't you out fishing more? You could buy more boats, build a fleet, and eventually build a canning factory." The fisherman asks, "And then what?" The businessman says, "Then you could retire, sit by the ocean, sleep late, and enjoy your family." The fisherman smiles and says, "Sir, what do you think I am doing right now?" The stupid man runs on a treadmill, chasing a horizon he can never catch. He postpones his life until he is too old to enjoy it. Stoicism isn't about lack of ambition. It's about ambitious action without the desperate attachment to the result. If you cannot find peace in who you are today, you will not find it with $1 million tomorrow. You will simply be a rich, miserable man. Stop waiting to live. And here is the brutal irony that most men never confront. Research consistently shows that the things we anticipate most bring us far less happiness than we predicted. Psychologists call this the impact bias. We overestimate how good future events will make us feel, and we underestimate how quickly we will adapt back to our baseline state of dissatisfaction. You think the promotion will make you happy, and it does for about 3 weeks. Then you adapt. Then you need something new. The promotion becomes the floor, and a new ceiling appears above you. The man chasing happiness through future achievements is like a man trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. He runs faster, pours in more, and wonders why the bucket is always empty. The Stoics had a specific cure for this. It is called negative visualization, or as Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius practiced it, the contemplation of loss. You deliberately imagine losing what you have, your health, your family, your home, your freedom, not as an exercise in depression, but as an exercise in gratitude. Because when you vividly imagine losing something, the thing itself becomes precious again. The meal you were bored with becomes extraordinary. The conversation with your child you were distracted during becomes irreplaceable. The ordinary Tuesday becomes a miracle you nearly missed. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." This is the antidote to the "I'll be happy when" disease. Each day is complete in itself. Each day offers the full range of human experience, connection, challenge, beauty, and purpose. The man who waits for some future arrangement of circumstances to justify his happiness is a man perpetually robbing himself. There is also a spiritual dimension to this that the Stoics pointed to. They believed in the concept of the logos, the rational order of the universe. To live in harmony with the present moment was to live in harmony with this order. To resist the present moment, to constantly push it away in preference for some imagined future, was a form of rebellion against nature itself. And nature always wins. Enjoy your life now, not when the conditions are right now, because now is all you ever actually have. This is the cry of the man who believes the universe owes him comfort. When tragedy strikes, when he loses money or falls ill, the foolish man feels personally targeted. He views hardship as an injustice. Why me? I'm a good person. This isn't fair. He resists reality. This resistance creates suffering, turning pain which is inevitable into misery which is optional. The Stoic embraces a concept called amor fati, a love of fate, not just tolerating what happens but loving it. The Stoic sees every obstacle not as a block in the path but as the path itself. Imagine you are a wrestler. If your coach pairs you with a weak, fragile opponent, you learn nothing. You remain weak. But if your coach pairs you with a giant, a champion who throws you around the mat, you struggle, you sweat, and you bleed. The foolish man asks, "Why does the coach hate me?" The wise man understands, the coach is trying to make me a champion. Life is that coach. When you say, "Why is this happening to me?" you are rejecting the training. You are wishing for a life of ease, which is a life of decay. Marcus Aurelius thanked the gods for his difficulties because they allowed him to test his virtue. When the fire burns, everything you throw into it becomes fuel for the fire. A stupid man is extinguished by the wind. A Stoic is the fire that burns brighter because of it. Stop asking why me and start asking what can I learn from this. Let us go deeper into why this question, why me, is so spiritually corrosive. It is based on a false premise. The premise that you should be exempt from difficulty. That if you are good enough, kind enough, or hardworking enough, the universe should reward you with a smooth path. But look at history. Look at every great man or woman who ever lived. Not one of them had a smooth path. Not one. Job in the biblical tradition loses everything. Joseph is sold into slavery by his own brothers. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. Viktor Frankl lost his family and his manuscripts in the Nazi concentration camps. Beethoven went deaf. The man who sits at the pinnacle of human achievement almost always has at his foundation a story of extraordinary suffering. The suffering was not a detour from the path. The suffering was the path. The Stoics believed this deeply. They believed that virtue, the highest human good, can only be forged through resistance. You cannot become courageous without facing fear. You cannot develop patience without experiencing frustration. You cannot cultivate gratitude without knowing loss. The difficulty is not the enemy of the good life. It is the factory where the good life is manufactured. Friedrich Nietzsche, who was heavily influenced by the Stoics, captured this with his famous phrase, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." But the Stoics went even further. They didn't just say that hardship makes you stronger. They said you should actively embrace it, welcome it, love it. Because the obstacle is the gift. The adversity is the curriculum. The suffering is the sculptor carving you into something worth being. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not motivational poster philosophy. This is operational truth. Every great business was built on a problem. Every great relationship was deepened by crisis. Every great character was forged by fire. The man who runs from difficulty runs from the very forge that would have made him formidable. So the next time life throws the storm at you, the job loss, the betrayal, the illness, the failure, do not collapse into the question of why me. Instead, stand up straight, look the difficulty in the eye, and ask it, what are you here to teach me? And then be quiet enough to listen to the answer. The moment a man thinks he knows everything, he stops growing. The phrase, "I know that already," is the tombstone of intelligence. The foolish man protects his ego by pretending to be an expert. He listens to reply, not to understand. He views new information as a threat to his intelligence rather than a supplement to it. He is rigid like a dry twig. Because he is rigid, he snaps easily. Epictetus was a teacher, and he would kick students out of his classroom who were arrogant. He famously said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. If your cup is full, nothing more can be poured in." There is a Zen story that mirrors this Stoic truth perfectly. A scholar visited a master to inquire about Zen. As the master served tea, he poured the scholar's cup full and then kept pouring. The tea overflowed, spilling onto the table and the scholar's robes. The scholar shouted, "Stop! The cup is full. No more will go in." The master replied, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you wisdom unless you first empty your cup?" The stupid man walks through life with a full cup, guarding his ignorance, terrified to admit he is wrong. The Stoic cultivates the mind of a student. He is willing to look foolish in the short term to become wise in the long term. He asks questions. He admits mistakes. He knows that true wisdom lies in admitting the vastness of what you do not know. Now let us examine exactly how dangerous intellectual arrogance is in practical terms. The man who already knows everything cannot be coached. He cannot take feedback. He cannot evolve his strategies when they stop working. In business, this man is bankrupt within a decade. In relationships, he drives away everyone who loves him because he will never admit he is wrong. In health, he ignores the warning signs because he already knows his body. He is always the smartest man in the room, right up until the room burns down around him. There is a scientific principle that applies here called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Research shows that the least competent people in any field consistently overestimate their own ability. Why? Because they don't yet know enough to know how much they don't know. True expertise, real mastery, always produces humility. The more a man learns about any subject, the more he becomes aware of the enormous landscape of what remains unknown. The surgeon with 30 years of experience is far more humble in the operating room than the medical student fresh from his first textbook. Because the surgeon has seen what can go wrong, he respects the complexity of what he does not yet fully understand. This is why Socrates, perhaps the wisest man who ever lived, said, "The only thing I know is that I know nothing." This was not false modesty. It was strategic wisdom. By declaring his ignorance, Socrates kept himself perpetually open. He never allowed his previous understanding to become a wall against new insight. He treated every conversation as an opportunity to learn, every challenge to his views as a gift rather than a threat. The Stoics carried this through their practice of philosophical journaling. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations to publish them. He wrote them for himself. Every night he was interrogating his own assumptions, questioning his own conclusions, holding his own mind up to scrutiny. Here was the most powerful man in the world, and he was writing things like, "Am I being petty here? Am I being fair? Am I missing something?" The Emperor of Rome was humbling himself before his own journal every single night, because he understood that the moment he stopped learning, he started dying. Empty your cup every single day. Ask questions you think you already know the answers to. Listen to people you think you disagree with. Read books that challenge your worldview. Seek out the person in the room who knows more than you and sit quietly at their feet. The wise man is always the student. The fool is always the expert. I'm too busy. I don't have time to read, to exercise, to think. The foolish man wears his business like a badge of honor. He mistakes movement for progress. He thinks that running around in circles means he is getting somewhere. But usually, "I don't have time," is a lie. What he really means is it is not a priority. He has time to scroll on his phone for 2 hours, but no time to meditate for 10 minutes. Seneca wrote an entire essay on this called "On the Shortness of Life." His conclusion: life is long enough if you know how to use it. He observed that men guard their money greedily. They wouldn't let a stranger steal their wallet. Yet they let everyone steal their time. They give hours to meaningless arguments, days to frivolous entertainment, and years to jobs they hate. Imagine you have a bank account that deposits $86,400 every morning, but at the end of the day, whatever you haven't used is deleted. You can't save it. You would spend every cent, wouldn't you? That is your life. You get 86,400 seconds every day. The foolish man lets them drain away, distracted and unfocused. The Stoic treats time as his most precious commodity. He ruthlessly cuts out the non-essential. He says no to the good so he can say yes to the great. When a man says he doesn't have time to improve himself, he is saying he is too busy driving to stop for gas. Eventually, he will break down. Do not be the man who reaches his deathbed realizing he was busy, but never actually lived. Let us be completely brutal about this, because this phrase, more than any other, is the greatest self-deception of our era. We live in the most time-rich period of human history. The average medieval peasant worked from sunrise to sunset 7 days a week just to eat. He did not have weekends. He did not have vacations. He did not have retirement. He did not have dishwashers or washing machines or cars or grocery stores. And yet you, a man with electricity, running water, indoor heating, a device in your pocket that contains all of human knowledge, cannot find 10 minutes to read. The modern man has time. What he lacks is intention. He has surrendered his attention to the architects of distraction, the engineers of the infinite scroll, the designers of the bottomless feed. Every app on your phone was built by some of the smartest minds on the planet with one singular purpose: to consume as much of your time as possible. They measure their success in hours captured, in sessions per day, in minutes stolen from your finite life. And you hand it over voluntarily, every single day. Seneca wrote this 2,000 years ago, and it is more true today than it has ever been. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a good deal of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. But when it is wasted in heedless luxury and spent on no good activity, we are forced at last by death's final constraint to realize that it has passed away before we knew it was passing. 2,000 years, and we still do not listen. The Stoics had a practice called memento mori. Remember that you will die, not as a morbid obsession, but as a clarifying lens. When you hold the fact of your death clearly in your mind, your priorities rearrange themselves instantly. The argument that seemed so important loses its urgency. The television show you were going to binge loses its appeal. The hour you were going to waste scrolling transforms into an hour you could spend becoming the man you want to be. Seneca wrote to Lucilius, "Do everything as if Seneca could see what you were doing." Replace his name with your own. Do everything as if the best version of yourself is watching. Would the best version of you spend 3 hours on entertainment and 20 minutes on development? Or would he invert those numbers? There is also a practical strategy here that the Stoics embodied: the morning hour. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations in the early morning before the demands of the empire arrived. Epictetus began his teaching day before dawn. Seneca wrote his letters and essays in the quiet hours before Rome woke up. Every Stoic understood that the first hour of the day belongs to you. It is the hour before the world can steal your attention. It is the hour when you are freshest, most undistracted, most capable of the deep thinking and deliberate practice that makes a man great. Guard your time. Guard it the way you would guard your life, because it is your life. Every second that passes is a second that will not come back. Use them like they matter, because they do. This is the ultimate cage. The foolish man lives his life for an audience that isn't watching. He buys things he doesn't need with money. He doesn't have to impress people he doesn't like. He is terrified of judgment. He censors his true thoughts and suppresses his true nature because he craves the validation of the crowd. He is a slave to the opinions of others. Marcus Aurelius found this behavior baffling. He asked, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." Think of an actor on a stage. If he spends the whole play looking at the audience to see if they are clapping, he will forget his lines. He will trip over the set. He will ruin the performance. To perform well, he must focus on the craft, on the truth of the scene, not the applause. The stupid man is the actor looking at the crowd. He changes his personality like a chameleon to fit in. The Stoic stands firm. He values his own conscience above his reputation. He knows that fame is just noise and reputation is just what people think you are. Character is who you actually are. If you seek the approval of others, you give them the power to destroy you with a single criticism. Break the chains. Let them think what they want. You have a life to lead. Let us go to the root of this, because this trap is the deepest one, and it begins in childhood. From our very first days, we are trained to seek approval. Good boy. Gold stars on the wall, grades that represent what the teacher thinks of us. The entire educational system, as brilliant as it can be, also trains us to orient ourselves outward, to perform for the observer. And this training doesn't stop when school ends. It continues in the workplace, in social media, in every room we walk into. The question, what will people think, gets drilled so deep into the operating system of the average man that by adulthood it runs automatically, beneath the level of conscious thought. He doesn't choose a career he loves. He chooses a career that sounds impressive at dinner parties. He doesn't wear clothes he likes. He wears clothes that signal the right status. He doesn't share his real opinions. He says what the room wants to hear. He builds his entire external life as a performance for an audience, and then wonders why, in his quiet moments alone, he feels hollow. Epictetus addressed this with characteristic bluntness. He said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Because here is the thing about growth, it looks awkward from the outside. The man learning to box looks clumsy. The man learning a new language makes mistakes. The man changing his career takes a step backward before he takes 10 steps forward. If your primary concern is how it looks to others, you will never take those first awkward steps. You will be frozen, perfectly preserved in your mediocrity, looking respectable but inwardly dying. There is also a mathematical absurdity to opinion, seeking that nobody points out. The average person thinks about you for approximately 0 seconds per day. They are too busy worrying about what other people think of them. The entire social anxiety ecosystem is built on billions of people simultaneously worrying about the judgment of other people who are not paying any attention. It is a collective delusion. Everyone is performing for an audience that has already gone home. Cato the Younger, one of Rome's great Stoic statesmen, was famous for wearing a plain toga at a time when Roman senators competed to display the most elaborate and expensive dress. He was mocked for it. He didn't care. He wore the plain toga as a deliberate act of philosophical defiance, a daily declaration that his value did not come from external presentation. He knew who he was. He did not need the crowd to confirm it. This is the Stoic definition of freedom. Not freedom from responsibility or consequence, but freedom from the tyranny of other people's opinions. The man who has achieved this freedom is terrifying in the best possible way. You cannot manipulate him with praise because he does not need your praise. You cannot intimidate him with criticism because your criticism does not define him. You cannot control him with social pressure because he has already decided who he is, and that decision was made in the chamber of his own conscience, not in the court of public opinion. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Not appear to be one. Not be voted one. Be one. In the dark, when no one is watching, that is the standard." Ask yourself today, how many of your choices are made for you, and how many are made for the audience? Strip away the performance. What would you do? What would you wear? What would you say? What would you pursue if no one was watching and no one was judging? That answer is your true north. Follow it. These 7 phrases, blaming others, claiming anger, postponing happiness, rejecting fate, feigning knowledge, wasting time, and fearing opinion, are the walls of a prison you built for yourself. But the door is unlocked. You can walk out at any moment. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about suppressing stupidity. It's about seeing the world clearly and acting with courage. Catch yourself the next time these words try to leave your mouth. Swallow them. Replace them with responsibility, gratitude, and action. And here is the final truth that ties all 7 of these together. Every one of these phrases is a surrender. Every single one is a moment where the man gives his power to something external, to other people, to circumstances, to fate, to the future, to the crowd. The Stoics spent their entire philosophical tradition trying to remind us of one fundamental fact. The only thing that is truly yours is your mind, your judgment, your will, your response. Everything outside of that is borrowed. Your body will age. Your money can disappear. Your reputation can be destroyed overnight by forces you cannot control. Your relationships are not guaranteed. Your health is fragile. Your circumstances can change in an instant. None of it is truly yours. But how you respond, that is yours forever. Nobody can take that from you. The Roman Emperor Hadrian, in the final hours of his life, wrote a poem to his own soul. He called it animula, vagula, blandula, little soul, wandering soul, gentle soul. He was reflecting on what remained when everything else was stripped away, and what remained was the interior life, the responses, the judgments, the character. That is what the Stoics were building when they practiced philosophy. Not theories, not arguments. They were building the interior, brick by brick, day by day, one conscious response at a time. Every time Epictetus refused to complain about his chains, he built a brick. Every time Marcus Aurelius chose patience over irritation, he laid a brick. Every time Seneca chose reflection over reaction, another brick was placed. You are building something too. Every day, whether you know it or not, you are constructing the interior of your character. Every time you blame someone else, you remove a brick. Every time you lose your temper and blame the trigger, you remove a brick. Every time you say, "I'll be happy when," or "why me," or "I already know," or "I don't have time," or "what will they think," you remove a brick. And slowly, brick by brick, the man who had the potential to be a fortress becomes a pile of rubble, blown about by every passing wind. But the reverse is also true. Every time you catch one of these phrases before it leaves your mouth and swallow it back down, you place a brick. Every time you own a mistake you could have blamed on someone else, you place a brick. Every time you stay calm when the provocation was real and the anger was justified, you place a brick. Every time you find meaning in the present moment instead of postponing your life, you place a brick. Every time you say what you think you already know might be wrong and stay curious, you place a brick. Every time you choose how to spend your seconds with intention, you place a brick. Every time you act from your own conscience rather than for the approval of the crowd, you place a brick. And one day, if you do this long enough, if you stay disciplined and honest and deliberate, you will discover that you have become what the Stoics called the sage. Not a perfect man. The Stoics themselves said the perfect sage was practically theoretical, more of an ideal to aim for than a man who ever actually existed, but an excellent man, a man who can be trusted, a man who can be relied upon, a man whose interior is so well built that when the storms come, and they always come, he does not collapse, he stands. That is the work. It is unglamorous work. It does not trend on social media. Nobody gives you an award for controlling your temper in a traffic jam. Nobody throws a parade because you woke up early and used your first hour well. Nobody cheers when you stop seeking their approval. The work is invisible from the outside, but it is everything on the inside. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." That is the standard. Not wealth, not fame, not success as the world defines it, self-respect. The kind that lives in the quiet place inside you that has nothing to do with what anyone else thinks. If this message reached something in you today, if one of these 7 phrases felt uncomfortably familiar, that discomfort is a gift. It means you are still honest with yourself. It means the door is still open. Walk through it. Hit the like button to help others find this path. Subscribe if you want to master your mind while others lose theirs. And if you are ready to go deeper, the journey continues. The choice, as it has always been, is yours.